Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Poetry. In this video, I'm going to be taking you through how to write a comparative analytical essay for poetry. Now, I'm using the poems from the Edexcel Time and Place collection. So it means that not all of the poems will necessarily be familiar to you, but the actual skill set itself and how to go about the essay, well, that's universal. So it doesn't matter what exam board you are studying or what collection of poems. So if you want to learn how to write a comparative essay about poetry, this is the video for you. Let's get started. So I'm just going to take you through the basic essay structure, and you can use this for any comparative essay, whether it's taught poems or unseen. First off, I would really recommend an introduction because you're normally given a fair amount of time to write a comparative essay for GCSE. So in that introduction, give a really brief description of the content of both of your poems comparatively if you can. And if it's taught poetry and if it's, appropriate to the particular exam board, a tiny bit of context. I'm talking about the Edexcel Time and Place poems today, but it really is relevant to anything that assesses AO3. If you can just sit that poem within the kind of broad context, you're already getting some marks with the examiner, but you're not looking at anything huge. 3 to 4 sentences, no quotes, nice and broad, giving a little bit of an angle for your essay. I would then really recommend doing a specific paragraph on form, again, comparatively. So you're going to explain what forms the poems are. So perhaps it's a sonnet or an elegy, a ballad, or maybe it's written in free verse, and why they've chosen that form. You don't have to quote in that. It can actually be quite quick, but form is one of the sort of higher level analytical skills. And so if you can do that comparatively, again, you're going to be signposting to your examiner that you know what you're doing. And then, of course, we're going to get cracking with some comparative analytical paragraphs. 2 to 3 would be absolutely super, again, depending on how much time you've got. If it's the Edexcel exam, you're looking at sort of 35, 40 minutes, so it's not masses of time. So how do we write our analytical paragraph? So we start with a comparative topic sentence. So make sure that you're bringing both of the poems in, from word go. Then we're going to look at one poem, nice little quote, analysis of that quote in relation to the question, make a comparative link back to the other poem, and again, quote and analysis of that second poem. And then you just lather, rinse, repeat. Obviously, where relevant, make your links to context. Now, that doesn't have to be in every single paragraph, but it should be in a few. Again, with Edexcel, it's worth 25%. So it doesn't have to be everywhere, but you need to make sure that you've got a little bit of range. Okay, let's have a little look at a model introduction, see what I mean. I'm doing this based on William Blake's London and Wordsworth composed upon Westminster Bridge. But again, if you don't know these poems, just look at it for the style. Despite being written less than 10 years apart, the poems London and composed upon Westminster Bridge depict London very differently. William Blake used his poem to criticise the corruption of the authorities in London, pointing out the vast suffering of the people. In contrast, Wordsworth created a more positive depiction of London. This is particularly unusual as, like Blake, he was a romantic poet and therefore anti-industry. This may be because his experience was very early in the morning, before the factories had opened, and so he was able to see the city in a different light. Okay, so I've just given like a little brief flavour of what the poems are about and why they were written, and I've just hit some contextual factors about when they were written, what the poets were known for, and, with the Wordsworth in particular, talked about the fact that it is quite unusual because, as we know, Romantic poets didn't really like the Industrial Revolution, and there's Wordsworth waxing lyrical about the beauty of the city. Okay, form. So I said it's high-level analysis, and that means that there's plenty of room for mistakes. So I'm going to show you the first mistake, the first thing that I see. Nothing's changed is written in free verse, whereas London is written in full strict rhyme and quatrains. Oh, okay, well that's true, but the point is, and what? So, why? What's the effect of that? You're not going to get points for identification if you don't explore effect. Just in the same way that if you said, that is a simile, you wouldn't get a point for that unless you explain what the impact of that simile is. Here's another thing that I see. So this is a person who is trying to explain the impact, but it looks a bit like this. Nothing's changed is written in free verse to make it flow better, which is different to London. Don't do it, please banish the phrase make it flow from your poetry writing toolbox. It means nothing. You've got to remember that poets write with a message. You don't often have poets writing a poem thinking, oh, I'm going to write something that's really lovely and flowy, you know, just a bit of sound for someone to listen to. No, they have a message. And so the form should reflect an aspect of that message. So here's a good example. This time I'm doing London. I love London. It's in almost all my slides. London and Nothing's Changed by Tatumkula Africa. So two very different forms. Because remember that when you're comparing, you can point out differences. It's not all similarities. So here we go. Both Blake and Africa use their respective forms to convey their anger. Africa uses free verse, which creates a fast-paced, almost ranting tone. The form could also represent the freedom that he so desperately wishes for in South Africa. In contrast, London's strict quatrain structure with an ABAB rhyme scheme is mimetic of the rigid control that the government holds over London, one of his main criticisms. One could also argue that the ABAB rhyme scheme is used somewhat ironically. A structure often associated with joy, it is in stark contrast to the overall tone of the poem. Okay, so that deals with what the form is and what the impact. Now, actually, for this particular paragraph, I gave two interpretations, which means that it's a slightly longer paragraph than perhaps you might want. Obviously, giving two alternative interpretations is gold dust in an exam. Examiners love multiple interpretations, but you don't have to. And in some of the poems, the form might be really clear cut, and it's just very, very straightforward why they're doing it, in which case, name it, say the reason why, and then compare. Right, we're moving on to the main body now. Yes, so we've done our intro, we've done our form. Now we're going to get on to our comparative analytical paragraphs. So I want to talk to you a little bit about topic sentences before I show you a really good model. Okay, have a little look at these bad boys. Adcock uses personification of the seagull. Okay. Both writers use language and structure to convey strong feelings about a place. Blake shows strong feelings towards a place through runs in blood in palace walls. Okay, so you might be like, yeah, fine, cool. No, that's great. Oh, yeah, look, personification. The first one is a little bit pickly, right? Because what it does is it limits you to talking only about the personification. Your topic sentence is meant to be introducing the idea that is running through a paragraph. Do you really want to limit yourself to one device? You're actually much better having something a little bit broader. So Adcock presents the seagull as vindictive and violent, yeah? And then you can talk about all of the different devices in those quotes, not just the personification. This is one of my personal favourites of what not to do. Both writers, so that's good, comparison, use language and structure to convey strong feelings about a place. Now imagine that's obviously your question, isn't it? How do the writers present strong feelings about a place? So what the problem is here is you've not been, or this person hasn't been specific about what the strong feeling is. You need to actually identify what the feeling is for your topic sentence. And language and structure, I know that we always ask you to talk about language and structure, but we want specifics. Saying language and structure as part of your analysis or your topic sentence is kind of like saying the writer uses words and sentences. Well, of course they do. And then here is my other typical topic sentence that makes me go, Urgh. Blake shows strong feelings towards a place. So same issue, very whiffly, through runs in blood down palace walls. Now, this candidate doesn't know what to write in their topic sentence. They know that they want to write about this bit of synecdoche or this bit of metaphor in the quote. So that what they're doing is just using a handful of words to piggyback into a quotation. That's a meaningless topic sentence. It's not doing anything. So try not to do that. So what should a topic sentence be? It should be comparative, yeah? Either similarity or difference. It should be specific to the question, not just a regurgitation of the main words. If it asks about feelings, what feelings are there? It should be, if possible, content-led rather than device-led. It doesn't always work out that way, okay? But try not to limit yourself. You know, the poet uses alliteration. That means you're only talking about alliteration. And topic sentences should be not just words to get to a quotation. Yeah, your topic sentence has purpose. It tells your examiner what the paragraph is going to be about. Here are some good examples. Both Nothing's Changed in London are autobiographical poems where the poet expresses critical views of their respective cultures. Specific. Whereas Absence deals with the anger associated with grief, Picnic explores feelings of nostalgia. Okay, so comparative, pointing out difference, nice and broad, but in terms of it's not device-led, but it's very clearly outlining what emotions are going to be discussed in the paragraph. And finally, Adcock's narrator expresses her dislike for Stewart Island throughout the poem. In contrast, Wordsworth celebrates the city of London. So that topic sentence is split into two, but that's fine as long as it makes grammatical sense. Right, let's have a look at a big chunking paragraph. Okay, this is quite a long one, but I'm hoping that you will find it useful. So let's have a quick look. Both the poets of London, oh, what's happened here? Oh, there we go. Both the poets of London and Stewart Island criticise their respective locations. In London, Blake criticises authority and its impact on the people of London. He is concerned that suffering is in every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every band. So note that I've just embedded that quote in. The repetition and anaphora here is particularly effective in demonstrating how widespread Blake feels the suffering in London is. He uses juxtaposition, contrasting infant and man, capitalising the nouns to suggest that they represent these groups as a whole, and emphasising how corruption affects all groups in the city, from young to old. Similarly, Adcock is also very critical of place. She too uses listing of criticisms about the island, recalling how her 7-year-old was bitten by sandflies and a mad seagull jetted down on her 4-year-old. She uses violent language to describe the seagulls and jetted and jab its claws, suggesting she feels her children want her attack. Like Blake, the criticisms demonstrate her own personal feelings, but in this case, they are to do with her children, whereas Blake was concerned for the whole of society. This is perhaps to do with her feelings of negativity surrounding the island, as she left Stewart Island after divorcing her husband. In contrast, Blake didn't have a specific experience that made him dislike London. He fervently disagreed with the political outlook and the treatment of the poor. Okay, comparative topic sentence. Then we get our quotes in. Now, because the topic sentences weren't device-led, that gave me room to talk about every device in those quotes. And look, we've got repetition, we've got anaphora, we've got juxtaposition, we've got the capitalising of nouns. That's 4 critical terms in half of the paragraph, yeah? Likewise, okay, oh, hang on, where's it gone? Sorry, so we've got listing there, so another kind of structural one. We're talking about connotations here. So do you see what I'm saying? That if you just go use as alliteration, you're limited. If you go open, then it means you can squeeze everything you can out of your quotes. That's what you're aiming for, fewer them, and you are gold dust on your way to a top band response. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you've got any questions, just drop me a line in the comments. And if there are any parts of the presentation that were sort of new information, there is a playlist with analysis of every single one of those videos and every single one of those poems, and videos that focus specifically on form and context. So do have a little look so you can get your knowledge up to scratch. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you again. Happy revising.